Joining us tonight for Stronger. We are going to be talking about specifically living in the age of Google. As we talk about walking with returning citizens and their families, um, something that um, something that is important to keep in mind is that this topic is important in part because of how many people are going to be being released with a criminal record. And as we think about that, the stat that it's important to keep in mind is that at least 1 in 3 Americans will have some form of a criminal record. And so this is something that we're going to be talking about more tonight. Before we get into that,
Okay.
oh, Phil has been having some technical difficulties, but it looks like they are now resolved. Hi, Phil. Okay. While we're waiting,
There we go. Okay.
sorry.
All right.
Um,
Okay. I'm back, I think. Sorry about all that. For some reason, my computer decided that it didn't know what the heck was going on. I had to adjust the settings. But okay. Sorry.
it's okay.
Mm.
All right. So, um, kind of in keeping with this, we're going to be going through an article and talking about some of the topics that it brings up. Um, One of the topics that it brings up is Second Chance Month. Um, the way that that is designed to basically help to deal with some of the stigma that returning citizens are facing. The reality is, though, that the combination of these things along with technology is not necessarily bringing about the kinds of results that we would most likely want to see. And so that's something I'm going to kind of throw out there. And Phil,
Yes.
you've kind of been off camera for a bit, so I'm going to pick on
Hmm.
you a little bit today.
Oh, please do.
What are some of your thoughts in regard to that?
Look at that. There I am. Okay. I just disappeared as soon as you asked me to do something. I went poof. Um. All right. Um. I love how in this article they're looking at how that despite what person might think, that the truth is somebody who is a returning citizen is actually more likely to have a better work ethic, to stick with the job, do all the things that you want an employee to do, than somebody maybe who hasn't had that experience. Um, you know, so why should there be any of the discrimination? But yet he pointed out it still exists. Now there I have to claim ignorance. He's been working with these guys. I don't generally try to find jobs for guys. Sometimes I do. And sometimes it works. But um, I have heard some guys say that they try and try, and nobody will hire them. Uh, Boy, that's discouraging. I we had somebody come to our ministry office for a meeting one time from the federal government to let us know that it's any company that has any kind of contracts whatsoever with the federal government, uh, or if they do business with a company that has contracts with the federal government, they're subcontractors for them, then they're not allowed to discriminate on the basis of your criminal record. So, on paper, it all looks good, but boy, the reality needs to change, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say that one of the things that we have to look at as we're going into discussing this topic is the fact that a lot of people, at least that we are seeing, that um, when we're looking at that breakdown, a lot of those people are within groups that would typically be marginalized anyway.
Mm.
And so as we're looking at that, and then looking at the challenges that returning citizens have, part of it is the mark that is there because of the marginalized status, in addition to the criminal record.
Mm. Yep. Yeah, it's so hard to get a job anyway, and now I add that on. Now we got another excuse not to hire. And this is at a time when businesses are supposedly just begging for people to come and work for them.
Diamond, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Yep. Gee, now it's Diamond's turn to disappear. Oh, I hear her. Nope. Oh, shucks.
Okay. So we're going to pass the mic to you, Mark.
There we go. I'm live.
Cool.
One of the things that, as you guys were talking, I was scrolling through the story again, trying to find the statistic. Somewhere in there, they talked about the number of people that, are reincarcerated, the recidivism rate, and how that number is, it's fairly high. And so if you're looking at that number as your starting point, then, well, why would I hire these people? Because they're going to get in trouble again and go back in. But the article really talks about is like, why are they getting back in trouble, or why is something happening? Because they can't find jobs, because they can't, settle down, settle into things. And, as at one time I was actually an employer, and, we, being in the food industry, you kind of take anybody. It's independent. You don't have too many problems with that. But one of the considerations that need to be taken in with someone who is, in the system in some way, they may still have obligations. They still have things that can happen very quickly. And they might miss work because they just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And, their PO, revocated them for a minute, or just took them down to the police station, because of something like that. And, it's to try to understand the bigger picture of what this person's going through, and not always to think of, a revocation of parole violation as another crime. And, a lot of people will talk about that as a crime instead of a rule violation.
Right.
Because so many more are just little rule violations, and it's just really, really, challenging for the employer in that respect. To you have to have everybody on board with that, and have, I guess, contingency plans in place. And certainly, if you're not familiar with the system, if you have any kind of negative thoughts about people who've committed crimes, you're not going to do well in that. You've got to have a real open and understanding mind of understand the system. I mean, just what is the system? And be informed is kind of a big part of that, I think.
Yeah, being informed is definitely important as we're looking to respond to those kinds of things. I would say also, one of the things that kind of came up to mind for me right now in this conversation is thinking back through like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Because if we're looking at that, and we're looking at the struggles that returning citizens are facing, one of the most basic needs are the physiological needs, which is water, food, shelter, those types of things. And if people are unable to get a job so that they can move forward, so that they can provide for themselves, or in some cases also contribute to providing for their families, then they're going to be consistently stuck within that physiological needs section. And if they're continuously stuck there, they're not able to think even as far as what are the things that are necessary as it relates to being part of like a larger community, because they're still stuck there.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's my friends talk about times when they have themselves been in this what they call survival mode, and when they've seen other people still stuck there. You're not, thinking. You're thinking a couple of minutes ahead. You're thinking an hour ahead, maybe a day ahead at most. Uh, but you're just trying to get through the day. You're trying to survive. So, uh, to think about staying at a job, to make plans to get there. I'm just trying to keep breathing.
Diamond, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's a lot to take in when it comes to when I think about the disabled communities and then the disabled communities of color.
Mhm.
They're under a lot of stress. A lot of them can't really get a lot of assistance. And then on top of that, like they have to figure out if they can get a job, what are the accommodations for that?
Mm.
And like you said, they're in survival mode, so they're not even always thinking that much because they're just like, maybe I'll do whatever it takes, including compromise my health in order to do the work,
Mhm.
even though they physically can't do the work. For example,
Mhm.
they're visually impaired, even though you may have functioning vision, in some regard, you may not be able to do the job completely well. So you stress yourself out trying to get the job. You stress yourself out on the job because you don't think about seeking accommodations. Because a lot of times when you seek accommodations, they have to put you off of work for a while in order to
Mm.
accommodate you, and then but they only pay you a percentage, which is, again, you might as well not have the job because it's not enough. So then there's that, and so like that's where my mind goes to. I mean, it could be because I'm disabled personally, but it's like you said, that survival mode, it's necessary, but it's hindering. And in this day and age, it's like
Mm.
you're not really sure where to go because you hear about all these things that are available to quote unquote everyone, but they're really not in practice, even with the digital age and how things are looking right now. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
And I think that element of disability is important to bring up there, because I don't think that as we think about conversations or even actions relating to returning citizens and their families, that that's necessarily something that comes to mind immediately.
Mhm. Good point. Yeah.
And then when you think about returning citizens, you got to think about the linguistic aspect, the language barriers,
Mm.
the accommodations with that. You have to think about the cultural shocks that come with. I mean, for me, having lived overseas for a while, then coming back to the States, because I'm technically
Mm.
I'm a returning citizen. Um, Getting rebalanced, like what's this life like after not being here for a while, and then
Mhm.
coming back with a child. Because when I left, I wasn't with a child. I didn't have a kid, but when I came back, I had my daughter, and it's like, wait, how do I navigate? Everything is new all over again.
Mm.
So you almost feel like a foreigner in your own land.
Mm.
So it's like really, it's a lot. It's a lot to think about, and so this topic is very, very relatable for me personally because I kind of sort of, even though I don't do corporate, I work from home. I'm a contractor freelancer. I still can feel the woes because I have applied to jobs before,
Mm.
and it's like, oh, and then there's a gap. That gap when you're overseas and you come back, there's
Ah.
a gap. They're like, what's with this gap? Oh, we can't verify your work because it's overseas, it's in another country. How do we know for sure
Ah.
that's what you did?
Mm.
So it's like, wow, you might as well have just have not ever been employed before. You might as well have
Wow.
not had any experiences. And so it's a lot. It's pretty. There's a lot of layers there. I feel like I've been using that word a lot today, but yeah, there's a lot of layers there.
Hmm. A gap. They'll look at that and say, explain the gap. Hmm. Yeah. So, well, I can explain the gap. I was in prison. Does that? Yeah. What does that automatically? Out of here. Next. Is that what? I wonder if that's what happens. Probably. In that article, I was really impressed with the fact that some states are doing what they can to keep people from even snooping and looking at records. That the state says we won't let you have these records. They're not none of your business.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, even with that, and this is one of the things that was kind of the article kind of alluded to, at least in some respects, is the fact that we are in the age of Google. That there are
Yes.
so many different ways that you can find out about a person's
Mhm.
background and their criminal history, even even beyond what you can get from formal records and things like that.
Yeah, I was at a gathering at this, church one time, and one of the guys there, it was his birthday. One of his ex girlfriend was there at the church, and uh, we she brought a birthday cake for him and had some presents. We all sang, and he said, how'd you remember it was my birthday? And she said, I knew it was sometime around, so I went on to CCAP. That's criminal record in Wisconsin. So just so she could find out when his birthday was. So there it was. Oh, it's his birthday. And it's
Yeah.
easy. It's that easy to do in Wisconsin. Anybody can access anybody's criminal record. Just pip, 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 and there it is.
And not even just a criminal record, but like who you're associated to, and then their records.
Mm.
I know for a fact
Yeah.
that if you look people up, you can find out a lot of things, including their 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 criminal record if there is one.
Mhm.
You can find out who they're related to, who their kids are, where they live, where they have lived, and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And that is information that not everybody should have, especially when it comes to privacy considerations. And when we're talking about people who are trying to adjust to being out of like an institutional setting and into communities, because that makes it incredibly difficult when anyone can access that information. Because what's going to happen if we do? For one thing, there is a judgment there. And for another thing, even if there's not necessarily the judgment in the sense of you can lose or not get a job because of this, or you can lose or not get access to these beneficial programs, like there are consequences when people find out that information who shouldn't.
Right. Yeah. Boy, so what to do about that when the internet is just this the wild wild west? No rules.
There needs to be education on privacy rights. Like for me working in cybersecurity, as a web designer, I've learned a lot about security and how to hide certain information for those who own websites. And you start to get really into the nitty gritty of understanding what your rights actually are online, as far as your information, whether or not you put it there, and learning how to scrub all of that, whether you were institutionalized or not. Like you can go in and you can learn about your rights and how to get that stuff removed off of the internet. Even with your credit report and things like that, your financial history, you can go through those agencies, those financial institutions, and get some of that information removed. That's why when I briefly worked in credit repair, and I still kind of do on the side a little bit, we learned a lot about account freezing and things like that for information identity security. A lot of those things that are actually really easily accessible can actually help a lot with keeping some information away from the public domain. But the problem is that, again, these people that are in the middle of trying to do A, B, and C to get their life in order, they don't have time to put into that. And they don't have the finances to invest into someone else who can do that for them.
Okay.
And so, again, the layers here. So, yeah. But there are ways.
That's very interesting in the sense of, a lot of returning citizen programs, churches and other places will have, various services that are available, like getting your driver's license back, getting this back, getting that. This sounds like another service that could potentially be offered to people to help them, overcome some of this, because some of the stuff's not going to go away. There's a lot of people, and my wife having been a journalist is one of them. It's like, no, you cannot take away my access to CCAP. that's a necessary thing. You've got people fighting it on that side, and there's, as with almost anything that we're trying to change, and we see a problem as, there's a certain amount where some of it may change, but it's, in the long run, there's always going to be people who are going to find ways around those changes if they
Sure.
want to. If people want to be mean to other people, they're going to be mean to other people, no matter the law. And so you try to do the best you can, and then the opposite side of that is, where is the church? Where are the Christian employers? Where are the people of faith employers? Let's put it that way. I won't even limit it to Christians, but Muslims, Jews, others, who say they've got a moral, calling from their God to live right and do right things. Let's step up and, learn what it takes to be an employer of someone who's got other issues, and realize that maybe my employees aren't all going to be the ones that are there 8 to 4 every single day for 40 years. Maybe there's going to be some things we have to work into how we do things. And I know there are people that do it. I don't know them personally, but I've heard of them. And I think even I've got a cousin that runs a factory, and he definitely has been willing over the years to, I've talked to him, and he said, yeah, send guys to me. I don't know if I've ever gotten anyone successfully in there because they don't show up or something else happens, but the door is open because he's willing, from his heart of faith, to say, I'm going to give these people a chance. And that becomes the bottom line of these discussions that we have, that we cannot just stop and say, well, somebody's got to change something. But what can we change? What can we do in the meantime to help people who are struggling? So when it comes to like what our churches offering to a returning citizen, do they have people within their congregations, people that where there's ways to do some different things? I think in the article it was interesting. They started talking about providing the means for people to become their own boss, run their own company, because then you could actually control some of those factors, in the sense of you don't have to go through that interview process to get hired, let's say, but and so that was interesting, workaround to the problem that people aren't getting hired, even though we've taken the checkbox off the the job applications for, are you a felon? Yes, I am. They took that off, but that doesn't stop a person from Googling. It doesn't stop a person from CCAPing it. But what can people do on it? So that really was striking, Dime, when you said there are ways to do this. To project some information.
So I realized returning citizens is not what I thought it was. because okay, Jana, because I am I returned back to the United States. But so like when you guys were saying returning citizens, I'm like, okay, so maybe y'all talking about like people who may have gone back to their their motherland, like say like Latin people who were born in the States, may have grown up here, but they went back home for like a bunch of years and they came back. No, I was very mistaken. But I do see a lot of like the parallels between the two, because for example, when I came back, first of all, I did come back to the States upon repatriation, like with the embassy had to send me back to the United States. I didn't come back like, hey, I want to come home now. It's like there was a bit of an emergency and I had to come back to the US. When I came back, because I had been gone for over 2 years, there was a lot I had to start over, which of course kind of relates to when you're coming out of prison. You basically have to start your life all the way over.
Oh, yeah.
And you have a lot of these things you have to re-navigate and recenter yourself. So I apologize for the mistake, but I can relate. It's cool though.
There's a lot of similarities there, a lot of parallels.
But with that being said, it's regarding like people who are coming back into society. Oh my gosh! But yeah, people coming back to society. Like they kind of are in a good position now with it being the age of Google, with the certifications that offer financial aid or scholarships to those who really want to get certified in certain
Mhm.
technical fields such as data science, data analytics. They can go in and get certified and work for these companies like Google, like IBM.
Mhm.
Thankfully we do have those resources. It's just once we just got to get them to find out about them, or like make sure
Mhm.
that they're placed in front of the computer or placed in front of the right resources to get to that point of being certified.
Mhm.
And that way, even if they do get the background checks done, and even if they do have to go through the kind of people scrubbing through the information, certain companies nowadays will be like, you know what, but you're qualified. And that's what I
Mm.
need, is someone who's qualified. And so I do think that there is a sense of of relief, I guess, that's
Mhm.
available if one can get it. And I think the church is in a great position to push that, push those opportunities, because it's not expensive. Like, for example, you get
Mm.
a Google certification through Coursera, that's like $49 a month. The church can we can afford that as a church. If we have someone coming out and they want to start their life over, hey, let's get you certified, we can cover those costs for you if Coursera themselves doesn't offer the financial aid, or things like that. By the way, we're not sponsored. But yeah, so that's it. It's just throwing that out there. We
I
do
want to
have.
respond to that, and I'll start by saying we're not sponsored, but we would be open to being. Um, but one of the things I would say in regard to that, and it kind of came to mind earlier with some of the things that were said with regard to technical certifications. That's well and good if we're walking with people who have that sort of a mind where they can work through things like that, like the data analytics or the computer science and things like that. That's well and good in those situations. But what happens if people don't necessarily have the kind of mind for that, which can be the case in some situations? Because honestly, if that were me in that situation, I wouldn't do very good at that. And then
Right.
the other
And
thing,
yeah, then you do have those other types of courses that should be pushed, not even not just online, but there could be what kind of, you can ask them what can you do? What are some things you might be interested in trying out? And they should be able to have a safe space to do that, to try different things, to figure out what works for them, and still be able to get compensated at least putting their best foot forward, I believe.
Hmm.
But yeah, oh, go ahead. You said another thing. I'm sorry about that.
no, you're fine. I feel like that was a good point to go ahead and bring to the table.
Yeah.
In environments that foster learning are definitely something that would be beneficial, especially if that's put in combination with things that meet those first level needs. As we're referring back to the comments that I was making earlier about Maslow's hierarchy, but also
Mhm.
going forward. Another thing that kind of stood out to me in regard to the conversation earlier is that one of the things that was recommended was um, making it so that people would start their own business. If
Mhm.
churches and other organizations are partnering with people to do that, that's one thing. Otherwise, starting a business in and of itself is incredibly expensive.
Hmm. Yeah, this article talks about these guys having uh, a ministry of helping people to be entrepreneurs. Uh, inmates to entrepreneurs. Just shooting for that. That's incredible. I wouldn't have the foggiest how to start that. That'd be something, you can Google that. Inmates to entrepreneurs. It looks like there's some help there. Boy, so if a guy he threw out some ideas like a lawn maintenance service, uh, something like that, then you're your own boss.
For sure, especially if you can have someone who's versed in writing business plans and things like
Mhm.
that. Um, can I shoot my shot real quick though? Like, since we're
Mm.
talking about this, and I feel like, if we're going to be speaking on certain things, we should definitely take action on certain things. So,
Mhm.
If anyone's watching this, by the way, and that's why I took put my camera back on. Also, because we're matching. Y'all notice that we're matching. Uh, but I do business planning. I help new businesses or people who want to get into business get a plan together, a plan of action. If there's someone who's watching or listening to this podcast today and you want to try to get into something, get your feet wet, learn more about what you can do as a solopreneur or entrepreneur, or someone who wants to help other people or start a ministry, and you just want to get a plan written out, reach out to us. I'll be happy to help you for free, by the way, and maybe even give you a free consultation on how you can, start to build up yourself financially and personally
Beautiful.
while you get back into society. I feel like this is not a place to sell stuff, and I'm not selling anything. Everything I said is free, but I just wanted to let our listeners know that this service is available for free, and I would love to give that to returning citizens that are not repatriates. But yeah, so that way you guys can hopefully we can get somewhere like that. Okay, we'll go for a car ride in a little bit. But yeah, so but there you go. We can do it. We'll get there.
Boy, thank you, Diamond. That is a great offer. I'm gonna gonna have to file that away and bring that up just because I think there's gonna be some guys that'll want that. I have run into some people from time to time that in prison they're using their time to come up with a business plan. I look, they'll show me their plans, and it's like I think this is good. I don't know. I mean, you put a lot of thought into it. It looks like you did some research. I don't know. So boy, to have somebody like you to run this past, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
And I feel like this is a good place for us to kind of close off the live stream for tonight. So thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight for Stronger. Anyone have any last words they'd like to say?
Bill praise.
Okay.
I like the thing that in 1 Corinthians, Paul talked about how he lists all these bad behaviors and says, and that's what some of you were, but you were washed, you were clean, you were sanctified. For us to operate with that mindset that what a person has done, well, that's what they've done. What does that tell me about them today? Maybe nothing. What is God doing with them right now? That's what we got to keep in mind and work with God and helping those people develop to be the people that they truly are. Oh, and also I capped myself while we were talking, and there was a speeding ticket from 2019. I was surprised to find out.
Oh.
That was all I could find.
Well, that's good, Phil.
Yeah. I guess they kept their word and they did expunge my felony record and from juvies.
Okay, so with that, Phil, let's go ahead and pray before you admit to anything else.
Felons aren't allowed to pray. All right. Okay, ex-felon. Is there such a thing? No. All right.
After the cat.
All right. Lord, you are the God of second chances, third chances, chance after chance after chance. You're just so generous with that. And we would love to be able to work with you in helping people who need a chance to get a chance. You've done that for us. You keep on doing that for us. We like to pass that on. We like to pay it forward. Help the people that are trying to find work, want to find work, and having trouble with that. Help them not to lose heart. And Lord, help us to be encouragers. Bless people like Diamond and others that are helping people to get a business plan, get your feet in the ground, get organized. Help all the people that are feeling so helpless right now to know that they're not. There is help. And Lord, we're praying that all the families, all the individuals, everybody who's they don't want this cycle to be repeated. Break that cycle, Lord, and help us as individuals, help our congregations, help us to be part of that. Praying for that in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. I finally can say it out loud because I always type it in the comments, but y'all never actually say it out loud. But yes, thank you all for listening.
Okay. All right.